Department of Pediatrics, and today we will be discussing about pneumonias in children. What is the definition of pneumonia? It is defined as inflammation of the lung parenchyma and is associated with consolidation of the alveolar spaces. Lung parenchyma is a portion of the lower respiratory tract consisting of the respiratory bronchioles, alveolar ducts, alveolar sacs, and alveoli. Incidence. It is a common problem in children and accounts for 10 to 20% of hospital admissions. It may be difficult to differentiate viral from bacterial pneumonia, especially as bacterial cultures are often negative. Now, classification of pneumonia, and pneumonia can be classified according to various ways. Anatomic classification consists of bronchopneumonia, lobar pneumonia, pneumonitis, and interstitial pneumonitis. In bronchopneumonia, there is scattered inflammation of the lungs around the bronchioles, causing patchy involvement and consolidation of the lung. So, in bronchopneumonia, there is scattered inflammation of the lungs around the bronchioles, causing patchy involvement and consolidation of the lung. In lobar pneumonia, there is consolidation of one or more lobes of the lung, not the bronchioles, or they are the major lobes of the liver of the lungs which are consolidated in lobar pneumonia. In pneumonitis, there is patchy inflammation of the lung that may or may not be associated with consolidation. So, in pneumonitis, it is like bronchopneumonia. There is patchy inflammation of the lung, and but that may not be associated with consolidation. In interstitial pneumonitis, inflammation of the interstitial tissues, which is composed of walls of the alveoli, alveolar sacs, and ducts and bronchioles. So this leads to interstitial pneumonitis. The interstitial tissue is involved, and there is inflammation of the interstitial tissues, which is composed of walls of the alveoli, alveolar sacs, and ducts and bronchioles. So you understand? This is the anatomical classification: bronchopneumonia, lobar pneumonia, pneumonitis, and interstitial pneumonitis. Now I will show you the X-rays. This is a typical of bronchopneumonia. You can see that there is patchy involvement of both sides of the lungs, and there is no definite markings of a lobe, big lobe. So there is patchy infiltration of around the bronchioles and alveoli. This is bronchopneumonia, usually very common in children and in patient who has got low immunity like old age. Also, it is common in old age and in patient with low immunity or on any cancer therapy drugs, etc. And children, small children, they have bronchopneumonia. This is lobar pneumonia. You can see the right upper lobe of the lung, right lung is upper lobe of right lung is involved, and there is a complete consolidation of the right upper lobe. So you can differentiate this from bronchopneumonia. Here there is no complete pacification. Here is complete pacification of a lobe of lung. This is interstitial pneumonitis. This also occurs usually in the viral infections, and many may be some toxic or toxic metal poisoning. So this can you can see there is involvement of the interstitial spaces. Almost all the interstitial spaces are involved, and there is pneumonitis of the interstitial spaces. Now, what is the etiological classification? Etiological classification, it is divided into bacterial pneumonia, viral pneumonia, aspiration pneumonia, hypostatic pneumonia, which occur usually in the patient who are bedridden, like patient with polio or patient with stroke. They are all the time, or patient with cerebral palsy, they are all the time lying, so they get hypostatic pneumonia. Fungal pneumonia is also occur in immunocompromised children and patients. Protozoal pneumonia due to mycoplasma and Pneumocystis carinii. Pneumocystis carinii is infection is quite common in patients with cancers, with leukemias, and mycoplasma pneumonia occurs generally in school age going children. This is another group is lofular pneumonia, and this is due to some hypersensitivity reaction, and there is transient pulmonary infiltrates with eosinophils. There is a high eosinophil count, and there are transient pulmonary infiltrates. Inflammatory pneumonia due to some connective tissue disorders or some inflammatory conditions like SLE, sarcoidosis, and histiocytosis. There may be pneumonia, and sometimes pneumonia due to toxic substances like hydrocarbons. These are this जो मिट्टी का तेल होता है, हाइड्रोकार्बन्स बच्चे पी लेते हैं गर्मियों में, समझते हैं पानी है और उनको निमोनिया हो जाता है. ये ड्यू टू टॉक्सिसिटी, ड्यू टू हाइड्रोकार्बन्स हो सकता है, स्मोक से हो सकता है निमोनिया, और डस्ट एलर्जी से हो सकता है. अब ये दिस इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन वायरल एंड बैक्टीरियल निमोनिया. On the right side, there is a big patch in the lower part of the upper zone and upper part of the lower zone lobe. And this is a big patch. This is showing bacterial infection of the alveoli and alveolar ducts, and also interstitial tissues. On the left side, you can see some haziness around the hyalae and also in the periphery of the lung. This is usually viral pneumonia. ये जा रहा है लेक्चर, कैसे पता लगेगा लेक्चर जा रहा है? जा रहा है, अच्छा. Now this another classification of recurrent pneumonia. Recurrent pneumonia is defined as 2 or more episodes in a single year, or 3 or more episodes ever since birth, with radiographic clearing between occurrences. So the definition is that it is defined as 2 or more episodes in a single year, or 3 or more episodes ever after birth, with radiographic clearing between the occurrences. So this is recurrent pneumonia. The underlying disorder should be considered if a child experiences recurrent pneumonia. So it is usually not common. Recurrent pneumonia is usually not common in a normal baby or child. So it is usually occurs in children who have got some underlying pathologies, due to what patient get recurrent attacks of pneumonia. So what are the causes of recurrent pneumonia? Hereditary causes like cystic fibrosis, sickle cell disease. Immunological disorders like A gamma globulinemia or Bruton A gamma globulinemia, where there is severe deficiency of gamma globulins. And then there is severe combined immune deficiency, where there is both deficiency of gamma globulins and cellular immunity. And chronic granulomatous disease, there is recurrent staphylococcal infections of the various organs of the body, including lungs. And hyperimmune E syndrome, also a immunological disorder where there is immune globulin is high, but but the effect is not normal. Now there are also leukocyte adherent effects. The leukocytes, they don't attach to the antigens properly, so they lose adherence with the antigen, so that's why they cannot perform their immune function. So these are immunological disorders. I repeat again because they are difficult names. Protein in A gamma globulinemia, protein A gamma globulinemia, severe combined immune deficiency, chronic granulomatous disease, hyperimmune globulin E syndrome, and leukocyte adherent defects. In all these immunological disorders, there is recurrent infection since early childhood, since birth even. Even early months of life, the child is getting repeated attacks of infections of various organs, including the lungs. Now, there are some disorders of cilia like infantile cilia syndrome, where the cilia, they don't have their ciliary activity, so they do not clear the respiratory passages. So there are recurrent attacks of infections and pneumonia. In the Carter-Jenner syndrome, this is Carter-Jenner syndrome is described that the child, there is dextrocardia, and the child is having sinopulmonary infections, and this is also repeated infections. Now, certain anatomical defects, they lead to recurrent chest infections like pulmonary sequestration. Some part of pulmonary parenchyma is sequestrated into the lungs and it is not properly drained. That's why there is recurrent infection there. There may be lobar emphysema congenitally. Some part of the alveoli, they are emphysematous. The child may be having gastroesophageal reflux, where the stomach contents are coming into the esophagus and then into going to the trachea. Then some foreign body inhalation may also lead to this problem, because a small child, if taking some nuts, etc., may inhale that nut into the some big bronchus, and the area the distal to that foreign body, either it gets inflated, or like due to bell valve phenomena, or it can be compressed or collapsed. So foreign body is diagnosed on the X-ray chest, where we can see the difference in the aeration of the lungs. Now this is a congenital defect of tracheoesophageal fistula. There is fistula formation between the trachea and esophagus, and this H type of fistula is usually not recognized early on, and the child presents with repeated chest infections. There are certain conditions leading to bronchiectasis, like in cystic fibrosis, in tuberculosis, bronchiectasis, the shapes of the bronchioles, this is abnormal and disfigured, and the secretions are not properly excreted, and the child get repeated infections in the lungs. Another problem can be repeated aspirations due to oropharyngeal incoordination. This usually happen in children with cerebral palsy, where they are getting repeated attacks of aspiration pneumonia, because they have got oropharyngeal incoordination and they cannot swallow their own saliva, and there is drooling of saliva. Now, what is the etiology of bacterial pneumonia? This is the most common type. In the newborn, etiology can usually gram-negative bacilli, they are the important causes, like E. coli. Group B streptococci is not common in Pakistan. In other part of the world, Europe, America, etc., it is quite common. But in our part of the world, it is not common. Group B streptococci. Staphylococcus aureus is here common, and also gram-negative rods like Klebsiella and Pseudomonas. They are the causes of sepsis as well as pneumonia in the newborn. In infancy and early childhood, in small children, the major cause is pneumococcus, then Streptococcus group A, and then Haemophilus influenza type B. But Haemophilus influenza type B is more common under 4 years of age. Pneumococcus and Strep 2 are more common after 5 years of age. Also, in immunocompromised children, there may be Staphylococcus aureus pneumonia. This is very important. It is important in infants, especially in infants. Staphylococcus pneumonia can be very dangerous. Mycoplasma pneumonia is common in school-going children after 5 years of age, and also E. coli and Klebsiella are also common in immunocompromised children. In older children, the pneumococcus is the number one common cause. Then H. influenza type B, Streptococcus group A, Staphylococcus, Mycoplasma, and Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So older children, pneumococcus is the most common, followed by H. influenza type B, Streptococcus, group A, beta hemolytic streptococci, staphylococci, Mycoplasma. This is very common in school-going children, and Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Now, what are the factors which predispose the child to pneumonia? There are certain predisposing factors like repeated aspirations, like esophageal reflux, which may be occur even in the normal child or in patient with the cerebral palsy. Repeated aspirations is there, or in patients who have got immune deficiency. I have told you many types of immune deficiency. And also if the patient is on immunosuppressions like cytotoxic drugs or steroids, like patient with the nephrotic syndrome or patient with the cancer, they are put on steroid or anti-cancer drugs. So they can have pneumonia with very uh, meager immune response. In congenital anomalies, intrapulmonary sequestration, I have already told you, also T fistula and cleft lip palate. These lead to aspiration, repeated aspiration and pneumonias. And if there are abnormalities in the clearance of mucus like cystic fibrosis, bronchiectasis, ciliary dyskinesia, um, uh, in these conditions, the cilia are not properly functioning, and in cystic fibrosis, the endobronchial secretions, they are very thick, so they are not easily removed by the child. And in bronchiectasis, there is copious amount of sputum is being formed, which is also not being excreted by the child. And in the ciliary dyskinesia, the ciliary activity is deficient. That's why the patient is getting recurrent attacks of pneumonia. Patients having congenital heart disease like VSD, vesicoseptal defect, AV canal defects. AV canal defects are more common in patients with trisomy 21. Due to the increased lung congestion and increased blood flow to the lungs, there is increased tendency to develop pneumonia. So these children usually present with repeated attacks of respiratory infections, fever, failure to thrive. Now, the pneumococcus, this is the commonest organism which is causing pneumonia, and it accounts for over 90% of the childhood bacterial pneumonia. And it classically causes a lobar pneumonia. So you should understood and remember that classically pneumococcus causes lobar pneumonia, but the complications are relatively uncommon. In the streptococcus pneumonia, it typically causes disease limited to the upper respiratory tract, especially the tonsils and the pharynx, but also may be responsible for lower respiratory tract disease. and it can cause empyema in 25% of the cases. If the lower respiratory tract is involved, in 25% of the cases of streptococci will lead to empyema. Empyema is collection of pus in the pleural cavity. So this they commonly cause empyema in children who get pleural infection in the pleural space leading to collection of pus. And there is also difficulty in breathing and decreased muscle movements on that side, and child is toxic and sick looking. And streptococcal infection is also common after measles. So now the third one, the Staphylococcus aureus. Staphylococcus aureus is most commonly seen in the first year of life, and disease may be associated with history of staphylococcal skin lesions. The patient may have history of boils and purulent skin lesions, pustules, etc. And then he can get this staphylococcal pneumonia. And usually this is seen under 1 year of age. And this becomes a very serious condition in infants. Clinical manifestations include an upper respiratory tract infection followed by an abrupt onset of high-grade fever, cough, and respiratory distress. The disease is rapidly progressive. So there is upper respiratory tract infection followed by abrupt onset of high-grade fever and cough and respiratory distress, and the disease is abruptly progressive. And there is bronchopneumonia early in the illness that rapidly progresses to lobar or complete involvement of the side of the lung. So initially there is bronchopneumonia, then it spreads, infection spreads and rapidly progresses to lobar or complete involvement of the side of the lung. The complications of Staphylococcal aureus pneumonia are pleural effusion, empyema, pneumatoceles, and pneumatoceles are the formation of some pneumatoceles. They are rounded, blackish appearing uh, blebs, which then rupture, and then from there the pus is going from lungs to the pleural cavity. So in the pleural effusion, this is only reactionary collection of fluid, and in the pleural effusion, usually there is transudate and there is no exudate, no pus present. But in empyema, it is exudate and there is presence of pus in the pleural cavity. And the pneumatocyte, when they rupture, they can even lead to pneumohemothorax also. Now, the other important cause is Haemophilus influenza type B. Pneumonia due to Haemophilus influenza type B typically has an insidious presentation. Usually, this is an insidious presentation, and the pneumonia is usually lobar with extensive destruction of the small airways and interstitial. In this condition, the destruction of the interstitial and small airways is more marked as compared to other type of pneumonias. Especially in the pneumococcus type of pneumococcal pneumonia, there is complete recovery after 10 days. But in this, there will be recovery will be followed by also fibrosis of the lungs and destruction of the small airways. And the pulmonary complications also include pleural effusion and empyema. H. influenza type B pneumonia is commonly associated with bacteremia, meningitis, cellulitis, and arthritis. So there is risk of distant infection in the meninges, in the blood, bacteremia, meningitis, cellulitis, and arthritis. What is the pathogenesis of pneumonia? Pathogenesis, you should understand that there is a part of the respiratory tract above the vocal cord, which is upper respiratory tract, and part below the vocal cords, it is a lower respiratory tract. And for both the respiratory tracts, upper and lower respiratory tract, there are certain protective mechanisms like mucus ciliary activity, cough reflex, and the mucosal secretory IgA antibody present in the mucosal substance. So these four things will tend to protect these respiratory passages from infection like mucus, ciliary activity, cough reflex, and secretory IgA. Within the lungs, bacteria are cleared by lymphatics that drain to the. Once the bacteria they enter the lung, they are cleared by the lymphatics. They are drained to the regional lymph nodes and by the macrophages. And the lungs are also protected by systemic humoral or cell-mediated immunity. Aeration of any of these alteration in the any of these protective mechanisms predisposes the child to the development of bacterial pneumonia. So when bacteria they enter the lungs, first of all the mucus try to clear them. Mucus move upwards with the ciliary activity, or if a foreign body gets in, there is cough reflex, and there are mucus because the secretions contain Cleti IgA, which is protective against infection. But once the infection or bacteria gets inside the lungs, then they are cleared by lymphatics, and from there they are drained through the regional lymph nodes, and by macrophages also drained, or then lungs are also protected by a systemic humoral and cell-mediated immunity in the B cells and T cells of T lymphocyte, and alteration of any of these protective mechanisms predispose the child to development of bacterial pneumonia. Most bacterial pathogens are transmitted by close personal contact or airborne spread. Pneumonia results from aspiration of pathogenic bacteria. Sometimes it is preceded by viral infection which disrupt the normal anatomic and physiological barriers of the respiratory tract, and less frequently bacteria spread to the lungs hematogenously from a distance focus like pyogenic infection of the other side. So there are two, three mechanisms. Once most bacteria they are transmitted by close personal contact by the airborne spread, then this pneumonia can occur due to aspiration of pathogenic bacteria, or sometimes there is initially there is first of all there is viral infection which disrupt the normal anatomic and physiological barrier of the respiratory tract, and due to disruption of these anatomical and physiological barriers, I have told you already the mucous membrane, ciliary activity, and secretory IgA. If they are disrupted, then this bacteria then can get infection. The lungs can get infection from the bacteria, but bacteria may also enter the lungs through the hematogenous spread from a distance focus like meningitis or some pyogenic infection at other side of the body. Okay. Now, what are the clinical findings of pneumonia? There is frequently a preceding upper respiratory tract infection, usually which is viral. The infant then becomes acutely ill, develops shaking, chills, and high-grade fever, and feeds are taken reluctantly. The child becomes drowsy, restless, and capnic, and the respiratory ratio becomes 2 is to 1 or 3 is to 1 instead of 4 is to 1 with the heart rate. So the respiratory rate increases and as compared to the heart rate. And this rate is very significant when it becomes more than 60 per minute in the newborn, more than 50 per second minute in 2 to 1 year of age, and more than 40 in 1 to 5 years of age. So very, very important to count the respiratory rate for whole 1 minute. It is very important to check the respiratory rate in a small child, because according to this change in the respiratory rate, we can say whether the baby is having pneumonia or no pneumonia or having any severe disease. The cough is dry, hacking, and it is usually non-productive. Dyspnea is associated with flaring of the alveoli nasal, and expiratory grunting is there. There may be intercostal and subcostal recessions, and cyanosis occur. So, what are the symptoms? First of all, there is high grade fever. First, there is upper respiratory tract infection. Then the child becomes acutely ill. Then the child is having shaking chills, high fever. He cannot take feed properly due to respiratory distress. And then the child becomes drowsy, restless, tachypneic, and you have to count the respiratory rate for 1 minute. In infants, it is, if it is above 60, it is very significant. If it is uh, above 50 in 2 months to 1 year of age, it becomes significant. And if it is more than 40, then after 1 year to 5 years, then it also becomes very significant. And cough is dry, hacking, and there is no non-productive cough. Dyspnea is associated with flaring of ani, nasa, and expiratory grunting. Expiratory grunting is also a grave sign. This sound is produced when the air, the child uh, try to bring air out of the lungs against the closed glottis. So in this way, he can improve the end expiratory volume. So the expiratory grunting is a not a good sign. So this shows that child is really very sick. And also, when you observe the child, always look directly the child chest. You have to see for the flaring of LNAs, see for intercostal and subcostal recessions, and also cyanosis. So these will show you that what is the severity of pneumonia. In infants, there may be diarrhea, vomiting, and signs of meningismus. Meningismus is usually occur in the right upper lobe pneumonia, and convulsion may occur due to fever. Older children usually complain of chest pain and sometimes abdominal pain if there is right basal pneumonia. The liver may seem enlarged because of downward displacement of the diaphragm, secondary to the hyperinflation of the lungs or superimposed congestive cardiac failure. The classic physical signs of consolidation appear on second or third day of life, and are characterized by diminished movements of the chest on the affected side, dullness on percussion, increased vocal fremitus, bronchial breathing, and increased vocal resonance. The pleural rub may be present. As resolution occurs, moist may be heard, and the signs of consolidation disappear. These are typical features of consolidation which appear on second or third day. You just think that first we have to inspect the child. When you inspect the child on the side of pneumonia, there will be minimum diminished movements of the chest. When you do the vocal fremitus, it is increased. Then you do the percussion, it is dull on percussion. When you hear the breath sounds, there are bronchial breath sounds. And when you do the increase vocal resonance, it is also increased. And if there is only very small amount of fluid in the pleural cavity, then you can hear pleural rub also. As resolution occurred, the moist nails are hard because now the fluid has been liquefied into the alveoli and alveolar duct, and when air passes through, you can hear moist nails. And now the signs of consolidation also disappear. There may be associated problems like measles, otitis media, congenital heart disease, malnutrition, and septicemia. Always look the child as a whole, as you are taught in IMNCI that you have to treat the child as a whole. So you have to look for other problems like measles, otitis media, congenital heart disease, malnutrition, and septicemia. Now, how to diagnose a case of pneumonia? We have to do, after the examination, we have to do the complete blood count. Leukocytosis is seen 15,000 to 40,000 yearly with predominance of neutrophils. This is the most commonly seen in the pneumococcal pneumonia. Sometimes WBCs are less than 5,000 and they are also associated with grave prognosis. And they are especially low in newborns and in children who have got low immunity. In the chest X-ray shows extended distribution of the consolidation. It also shows pleural effusion is present. In pneumococcal pneumonia, X-ray classically shows a lobar pneumonia with gross consolidation. In streptococcal pneumonia, X-ray usually reveals a diffuse bronchopneumonia with large pleural effusion. In staphylococcal pneumonia, X-ray shows non-specific bronchopneumonia early in the illness, then rapidly progresses to lobar or complete hemithorax involvement. So there are differences in the chest X-ray. In pneumococcal pneumonia, usually there is lobar presentation. I will show you the lobar type. This is lobar. This is lobar pneumonia. You see the right upper lobe is totally consolidified. So this is lobar pneumonia which usually happens in pneumococcal, also in H. influenza. And this is showing you bacterial pneumonia. The lower part of the upper lobe and upper part of the lower lobe, they are both consolidated. So pleural effusion usually is seen in staphylococcal pneumonia and in staphylococcal pneumonia and in streptococcal pneumonia. H. influenza pneumonia X-ray shows a lobar pneumonia with extensive destruction of the small airways and interstitium. As I have already told you that in H. influenza pneumonia there is destruction of the interstitium and the small airways. You can also send blood culture, and if the patient is a big older child, you can take expectorated sputum specimen for gram staining. And if the patient is having pleural effusion, you can take out pleural fluid from the chest and send it for microscopy, biochemistry, and culture. And you can get information that whether this is an exudate or this is exudate or just this is a simple transudate. So you can differentiate between both by the pleural fluid examination. Then you can send antistreptolysin O titer for streptococcal pneumonia, or if you are suspecting, then when the history is long and there is positive family history of contact with TB patient, you can do tuberculin skin test also. Now, what are the complications of pneumonia? Empyema, it occurs frequently with Staph aureus, Staph pneumoniae, and Staph pyogenes. Lung abscess, pneumothorax, pneumatoceles. These are thin walled cavities that develop in lung during the course of bacterial pneumonia. They are most common in the staphylococcal pneumonia. Then pleural effusion, delayed resolution may occur. Respiratory failure can develop if there is massive involvement of lungs, or there may be some metastatic septic complications like meningitis, titus media, sinusitis, and septicemia, particularly with streptococcal strep pneumoniae and H. influenza disease. So in both there is also metastatic septic infection, but pleural effusion and empyema is the most common, most serious complication of staphylococcal pneumonia, staph pneumoniae, and staph pyogenes. Now the treatment. Supportive treatment, bed rest and good diet is advised. Oxygen inhalation is given 2 to 4 liter per minute and by mask. And to lower the body temperature, we can give antibiotics, or we can do rapid sponging with the tepid water sponging, so that the temperature gets down easily. And we should give adequate fluid because due to respiratory distress there is loss of water from the lungs, and there is insensible water loss due to tachypnea. We can do chest exercises or physiotherapy during the recovery period, so that the patient can expectorate easily the secretions. Now the specific treatment is the specific antibiotics, which are given according to the causative agents for 7 to 10 days duly for pneumo and streptococcus, but for 2 to 3 weeks for staphylococcal pneumonia. For staphylococcal pneumonia, you need more potent antibiotics and for longer duration of time. And when possible, if you can get blood culture report or sputum culture report, you can these reports can guide you the choice of antibiotic, as you can know the sensitivity patterns of the organism isolated. Now, the briefly what drugs are being used for pneumococcus. We uh, are using still now. Benzylpenicillin is being used, but is not that effective now. We can use first generation cephalosporins. For streptococcus, we can use benzylpenicillin, erythromycin. For staphylococcus infection, we have to use first generation cephalosporin and fluoxetine. For H. influenza infection, second and third generation cephalosporin and chloramphenicol may be effective. For mycoplasma, this is usually atypical pneumonia. We can use erythromycin and erythromycin. For E. coli infection, especially in the neonates, we can use minoglycosides like gentamicin and amikacin. And for tuberculosis, we have to use anti-tuberculous drugs, INH, rifampicin, ethambutol, parazinamide. For Pseudomonas and Klebsiella, these are also very common in newborn sepsis and pneumonia. We can use meropenem in a dose of 60 milligram per kg per day, divided in 3 doses, or piperacillin 250 to 300 milligram per kg per day in 3 to 4 divided doses. Or we can use cefepime, which is a 4th generation cephalosporin, with or without use of gentamicin and vancomycin. And vancomycin is also very effective for staphylococcal pneumonia. Now we have to treat the complication. For empyema, we have to drain the pleural cavity by chest intubation, and we have to keep for 7 to 10 days. And when the fluid is clear, when we have to remove the tube. For the lung abscess, we have to do the postal drainage and physiotherapy. And prognosis, if bacterial pneumonia is adequately recognized and treated, the survival rate is high. Prevention, vaccination can reduce the incidence of pneumonia. We have got a HEP vaccine for H. influenza type B and pneumococcal vaccine, and both are very effective. They are included in our EPI program. So the babies who get these vaccinations, they are almost free of pneumonia. Pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, it can decrease pneumonia in hospitalized cases. And influenza vaccine is also recommended, some for high risk children. Thank you so much. ये अनम्यूट कर दें. अनम्यूट कर दें, जल्दी है, आवाज तो नहीं आ रही।
शामिल पड़े थे वैसे लेता हूँ ज़्यादा से लेता可以烫一下饼。
Yes, you can ask me any question you want to. What you want to ask, you can ask me about pneumonia. Please talk to me. Have you understood the topic? Have you understood the topic or not? I can't understand you. All of you are talking. One by one, please ask me question one by one. Yes, Sana Zafar, do you want to ask me anything? Zafar Abbas, Ali Hamza, do you want to ask me anything? You don't want to ask me any question? बंद कर दे, ये लोग कोई समझ नहीं आ रही क्या बोल रहे हैं।